Guys, what's going on? Welcome to Serial at Midnight. My name is Heath, and if there's one question that we get asked more than any other question here at Serial at Midnight, it's, is physical media dying? Now, I understand why this question comes in as often as it does, and I'm serious, not a week goes by that we don't get asked this in our YouTube videos, on our social media, even emails directly to us asking, is physical media dying? And if it is, what are you going to do when it's all gone? So this video seems like it's a long time coming, and I understand why the question comes in, because obviously things are changing. The physical media market is changing. It's impossible to walk into one of your big box stores or your markets that has traditionally sold physical media and not see that things have changed, because there used to be aisles of this stuff. You know, in the DVD boom of the early 2000s, you could walk into any store and there was a row after row of physical media. Now some stores don't carry it at all. But does that mean that physical media is dying? Why are stores not carrying these things? Well, I think one of the reasons why is because there's just so much out there. One of the things that's not talked about a lot when we talk about physical media releases, and people say, well, I go into my Target and I don't even see most of the new releases there anymore. Well, one of the reasons why is because there's so many new releases, and the odds of someone choosing those over streaming them on Netflix or something like that, it's lower than it used to be. But what we're not necessarily hearing is that there are 50 to 60 new physical media releases just in movies. I'm talking about DVDs, Blu-rays, 4Ks. There are 50 to 60 on average releases every single week. Now, some of you guys would be like, no, that's crazy. Look it up. Go to the release sites, look at the release schedules for what's coming out on DVD and Blu-ray. It's not all coming from companies like Sony or from Warner Brothers. There's a lot of these boutique labels. That's one of the things that's changed in the last few years, is that now instead of someone like Warner Brothers, or it's more companies like Sony, Columbia Pictures, things like that, these movies are getting licensed out to third-party distributors like Mill Creek, like MVD Entertainment, like Arrow Video. All these wonderful boutique labels, Severin, these wonderful companies are putting out the movies themselves in super duper special editions, and those are not showing up in retail stores. It's moved to an online model. So one of the things that I think we can observe is with the rise of streaming, which we'll talk about more in a second, we've seen a bigger shift to a online market just because of the sheer volume of things. You guys, we are deep into the life cycle of both DVD and Blu-ray. You know, at this point in its life cycle, VHS was on the decline. VHS had been around for, I don't know, 25 years when it really started to decline and DVD took over. Well, DVD is 20 years old now. It's actually older than 20 years old, but it's been a popular format. I've been collecting DVDs for 2 decades. It's alive and well. And Blu-rays are even more popular in the collector community. So I think one of the things that we're seeing is, as streaming has arisen higher and higher and higher, more people are choosing convenience over choice. Because that is a thing. If you're streaming most things, it's because of the convenience factor. There's a discovery factor there as well, especially since there are streaming exclusive TV shows, exclusive movies. But there's a streaming war coming, obviously, because all these companies are popping up with their own services, and they're not all going to last. They will not all succeed. Disney, Warner Brothers is developing one. There's the DC Universe. Everyone wants a little piece of this pie, but the pie's not big enough for everybody to have a piece. So some of these companies will live, some of them are not going to make it. And through it all, they're choosing what you get to watch. These are not your choices. So I understand if you want to watch the latest Transformers movie, that's probably going to be on streaming. But if you want to explore the vast history of movies, the hundreds of thousands of movies that built the cinematic past, they're not on streaming. They may be available for a digital rental through someone like Amazon or iTunes or someone like that. But then you have to ask yourself, well, is this an edited version? Has this been censored to take out a scene that I might find offensive? Has this digital copy of this movie been cut for? Has it had music replacement? These are valid questions in a streaming world, because they don't announce these things. They just do them and hope no one notices. So as that has continued to rise, physical media ownership and collecting has actually been buoyed as well. Though the mainstream appeal of physical media has declined because people are choosing convenience over choice, the actual collecting community has gotten stronger and stronger. So I've been collecting for 25 years. I started collecting VHS in the 90s, early 90s actually, maybe closer to 30 years. And I have seen, when I was into these things, people didn't have huge media collections. They had movies that they cared about. They would buy some of their favorite movies, like, you know, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, a lot of people had that one. We all had Home Alone, but the odd titles, just the vast majority of movie titles and music titles as well. People didn't necessarily own these things, but the rise of mainstream, it really came with the DVD boom in the late 90s, but by the early 2000s, the DVD boom had kind of taken over everything. You'd walk in Walmart, it was a wonderful time to see all the straight to DVD movies that were coming out. Things that never could have gotten a theatrical release were getting straight to DVD releases. But now that's what streaming has taken the place of. Those movies that would not have had a theatrical release, instead of going straight to DVD, are often going straight to streaming. And that's why streaming can be valuable. It's a cool asset for discovery. But for collecting, not so much. For ownership, for freedom of choice, for documentation, personal archives, streaming is never going to be those things. So that's why the collecting community continues to thrive. And you guys, the companies that are putting these things out, so we see less releases from people like Sony, or the big major studios are putting less movies out themselves, which is another reason that you're not seeing some of this stuff in Walmarts or Targets or Best Buys. Hey, in some cases, like Best Buy doesn't even sell CDs anymore. But you know why they don't sell CDs anymore? Because CD sales are way down. But vinyl sales are way up. And so Best Buy does sell some vinyl. And a lot of stores are selling vinyl. So when we talk about the decline of CDs, we have to equate it to the rise of vinyl. Vinyl is bigger than it's been in decades. It's not that the audience has just disappeared. They've just moved to other things. But getting back to that niche collectible thing, these companies are not necessarily putting these things out themselves. They're licensing releases via third-party distributors like Mill Creek, like MVD Entertainment, Arrow Video. Then there's Severin, there's Vinegar Syndrome. There's all these other labels, these boutique labels, and they are putting out editions of movies that are the definitive archival release of these films. I have a stack here of things that I just kind of wanted to show you guys. So in a declining market, for a market that's supposed to be dead, we're getting a lot of really cool things that we would not get if the market was dead. So I wanted to point out this. This is an MVD release. This is Showdown, not on streaming anywhere. You cannot even digitally rent this as far as I know. Then there's like The Secret Invasion, The Skull. These are from Kino Lorber Studio Classics. These are not available on Netflix or on Hulu. The Sinbad movies, the Sinbad trilogy. This is a beautiful box set from Indicator. It's now out of print, so hopefully anybody that wanted that bought that release, because it's gorgeous. And again, those movies really only on Blu-ray. You're not going to find those on a Netflix or on a Hulu or something like that. The Sartana collection. This is from Arrow Video as well, and this is a loving archive set of the Sartana spaghetti westerns. Again, good luck finding these in this quality online. You're going to have to resort to dubious methods most of the time. And then there's other companies like Mill Creek has been helping release these movies from the Kit Parker Films archive. These are old noir films, 9 noir films on each volume. And we are only able to get things like this because we are so deep in the life cycle of DVD and Blu-ray that the companies, these studios, are digging deep into the vault. That's one of the things that's appealing about being so deep into a life cycle that is still thriving, maybe not as much as it was in 2001 or 2002, but the length of time. We have all the major releases on DVD and Blu-ray most of the time. So we're able to get really niche, really obscure things. And I think that's what we're seeing is everybody who wants a copy of, the Transformers The Last Night, they probably have it. Everybody that wants that, you can just go in any store and get it. But for some of this other stuff, it's a niche collectible thing. And there will always be a market for physical media for niche collectible items. And you can't put all this stuff in stores because there's not going to be 20,000 people buying these things, or in the heady days of DVD, 100,000 copies of something, or more than that for some releases. These things get like 2,000, 3,000, 3,500 pressings, 3,500 items. They're shipped, they're printed that way, they get shipped out. When they're gone, they're gone. And so it's more collectible. And that's how it used to be. Like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. In the 90s, even in the very early days of DVD, it was a niche thing. If you had a DVD collection, you were a super duper film fan. People knew, oh, that guy's really serious about this stuff. Then it got very mainstream, very popular, and everybody started collecting it because it was cheap. They were everywhere. We're moving out of that. We're moving back to the collectible niche status. And it's going to be carried on by the people that value ownership. They value the freedom of choice, because you will never have freedom of choice through streaming. And I like streaming for a discovery aspect, as we've talked about. Streaming is a great way to discover things, but it's not a great way to own things that you care about. If you want to watch something again on your terms, if you want to say, well, that's a good one, I will revisit that often. Streaming is not the way to do that, because it could be gone tomorrow. We all have to decide for ourselves what's more important to us. Is it the discovery aspect and the convenience, or do we want to own and watch things on our terms? And for some people, the answer is, I'm fine just watching things on streaming. If it's not there, I'll try to go digitally rent it. And if that's what works for some people, that's fine. But for those of us that do collect physical media and are passionate about physical media and the preservation, avoiding censorship issues, avoiding companies just pulling things away when a company decides, oh, we don't want this on streaming anymore, so it's just gone. You can never count from one month to the next what's going to be on streaming, because it's always changing. And that's not going to change. The physical media is not suddenly going to become invalid. We're talking about better presentations. We're talking about forever ownership and total freedom. Those points are never going to disappear. So physical media is not going anywhere. So this is a very long answer with evidence, hopefully, to show you that no, physical media is not dying. It's in decline, but it's just moved back into a niche area, buoyed by collectors, buoyed by film fans. Even on the music front, there's all the vinyl that's coming out, but they're still making fantastic CDs of things that can only come at this point. I want to talk about this. I pulled this off the shelves. This is a Bob Dylan collection from it's the 1966 live recordings. So it's basically an entire tour. All of these discs, each disc is a night of a concert. We could not have gotten this 15 years ago. How would you even have done this? This would have been $1,000. This was under $100 a couple of years ago. That comes with the era of niche collecting physical media that we find ourselves in. Another reason that this is able to happen is because companies are trying to preserve their copyright laws. So if they had not copyrighted these 50 years onward, the copyright laws have kind of changed in the last few years. And now if you haven't marketed something after 50 years, the copyright goes up and these things can become public domain. So all these companies are cleaning out their vaults and they're like, well, we have this, and if we don't put it out, then if we don't put a physical media release out or a digital release or whatever, then we do not have the copyright to these things. So we have to put them out. So Elvis and Johnny Cash, all these things are just flooding the market, and we've never seen anything like that before. So it is actually a great time to be a physical media collector. People ask me if I'm afraid of the eventual death of physical media. Not at all. I think there's zero possibility for a decline in physical media. Not a decline, a death of physical media. It's just gone back to a collectible market. And maybe that's for the best, because with that, we get these lavish editions. We get this, like I was showing you guys, we get this incredible edition of Sartana. We've never had anything like this before. Physical media, VHS has been around since, it was popular in the early 80s. It's been around longer than that, but it's been popular since the early 80s. We've never had anything as comprehensive as this. Widescreen movies, the original aspect ratios, language choices. It's incredible. This is the best time in the history of physical media to be a physical media collector. Prices are lower than they've ever been. Access is higher than it's ever been. And we have more cool things than we have ever had before. So no. Physical media is not dying. The market has changed. Mainstream sales are in decline, but that niche market has risen to carry the load. We still buy these things. 50 to 60 new releases every single week. Go on the internet to verify that. You'll find it yourself. They're just not popping up in stores, because where would they put all this stuff? And who would buy them? Your average person running into the store to get milk is not going to buy a Sartana Blu-ray. It's for us. The market has come back to the collector. So I live in no fear. I do not ever think they're going to stop making DVD players or Blu-ray players. Do not have fear. Physical media is not dying. Things have just changed, and change is inevitable. with that change has actually come a ton of cool stuff. And we are in a place now where there is more goodness than there has ever been before. So enjoy it. And this is, if you're not collecting physical media and you're watching this video and you want to get started, let us know. I'm telling you, this is the best time to start. Maybe there's an opportunity for a future video, which is starting how to begin collecting physical media. I think someone had actually suggested that video at some point. How do I get started collecting physical media? When everyone's telling you physical media, just stream it. There is still a reason to buy physical media, to support physical media. So guys, that is our thoughts on, is physical media dying? No, it is not. Do not live in fear. Have hope. Guys, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you so very much. So take care, and until next time, I will catch you later.